And go out.
All right. Where we on Instagram?
Facebook and YouTube. Let's see. Can you hear the music?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go. Ready?
Ready?
All right, here we go. Try to cut the music down. All right, everybody. Good Thursday afternoon, evening to you. This is your main man. I'm a different echelon, also known as Darius Nolan, Don Morocco of the Lavish Sound, but most importantly of the I'm a Different Echelon podcast. Very happy to have once again a very special guest today on the podcast. Someone who's very close, near, and dear to me. Someone who's been in my life my whole life. So I'd like for everyone to welcome in my brother, my one and only brother, Mr. Eric Nolan of Queens, New York. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Darius. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. How's Corona treating you, man?
Well, Corona doesn't treat me any kind of way. It's how I'm treating Corona.
All right.
I'm staying max up and, washing is necessary. Definitely doing social distancing or physical distancing, so I'm just looking forward to better things coming, in terms of us moving away from this.
That's good. That's good. I saw something. I was at work the other day, and I saw an interesting statistic that said between the months of March and May, over 600,000 New York City or Tri-County area residents moved out of New York because of the COVID-19. That's got to feel real different to you, man. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, man?
I guess I'm kind of biased to people leaving New York, but also I believe that people should make their own decisions. I'm sure that people were running. I mean, this thing was really bad, and for a city, like New York that never sleeps, and then we also feel like we can't be stopped. It was something very, very different when this thing came to this city and pretty much took over. I didn't find a need to run because my work is here, and I mean, I'm good. But
Right.
the city is going to bounce back. New York is that kind of place. We can't stay down, and now we have such low numbers.
Right.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that we are gradually and gradually opening back up.
Yeah, I think Governor Cuomo, just for me, watching the news and all that kind of stuff, seems to have done a very good job of trying to keep things at bay, trying to keep people informed on the right, the right protocols. I have a little congestion today, so please excuse me, but the right protocols in regards to social distancing, also too in regards to just people wearing their masks and things of that nature. So I think that's excellent. I think he's doing a good job. That city is, my favorite city is my hometown. And, I love to go there. So vibrant all the time. People always, there, and there's such happiness. And when something like this were to happen, it kind of brings a damper on things. But I think you and I have spoken in the past about, being able to overcome adversity. I remember, I guess 20 years ago or better now, with the whole 9/11 situation. I remember at the time I was working at a cable company and we had TVs everywhere, and I came to work kind of late. my shift didn't start until like 12 o'clock noon. And I remember, I saw all the destruction. I was like, what's going on? And the secretary at the time was like, oh man, this towers went down. And I said, oh my God. So the first person I thought about was you, obviously. So couldn't get in contact with you. So, but thank God you're still with us. So many people lost their lives. But the point is that even through that, New York has bounced back and the nation has bounced back. So this seems to be a nationwide thing. But nonetheless, I'm happy that you're good and everything like that. But I want to kind of continue a conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. So you have a foundation up in New York called Umoja. Is that how you pronounce it?
It's actually, we say Umoja, but it's Umoja Network for Young Men Incorporated.
Yeah, Umoja. So if you can, just kind of for the listeners, please kind of break that down and let us know the great things that you guys are doing up in New York.
So the name of the organization, as I said, is Umoja Network for Young Men Incorporated. And so our mission is to live with purpose, learn with morals, and lead with integrity. Mm-hmm. And we are an organization that focuses primarily on mentoring and developing leadership skills in young men. Mm-hmm. And so upon that, we believe that in order for young men to be productive, they have to be they have to be academically prepared, emotionally strong, socially adept, and spiritually connected. So our curriculum embraces all of those things, right? So that's like the foundation of what we do. And so that's where we are. And just to give a brief history of us, we started out at an alternative school called Satellite Academy High School in 2004. And so in the beginning, we only serviced those students, but a lot of times we took the work outside. So we did work at NYU. We have a collaboration with Teachers College, Columbia University, John Jay. So we were housed in the school, but we took the work, we took the message out. Mm-hmm. And so after being housed in that school from 2004 to 2000, probably 12, I decided that I wanted to take it to the next level by creating it and registering it as a not-for-profit organization in the state of New York. So we've been continuing. So right now, we've been in existence this fall. Right now, September, we're turning 16.
Yeah, so that's good. So let me ask you, how many young boys do you have in the organization right now? Now, do you call them students or clients? Like, what's the official name for those?
I call them young kings.
Okay, so how many young kings do you have right now?
So we're getting a new roster this year because the school year is slowly starting up. But at the end of the academic year of 2020, we had about 30 young men we were working with.
Right.
And so we at that point were housed in a school in Queens, Excelsior Preparatory Academy, and another school called Pace High School.
Okay.
So a lot of what we do. So right now, we're not limited to this, but we work with Department of Education schools because we contract with them to come in and work with a core group of students.
Right. Now, let me ask you a question. You want to get them prepared. I don't remember the exact, model, but you want to get them prepared spiritually. Do you guys in some way kind of promote spirituality in the sense of religion, such as, say Christianity, Judaism, or, Islam, or, is that a part of it too, or what?
So we don't, when we say spiritually connected, we more so mean connected to their origin, to their roots, where they come from.
Okay.
So some of the young men are African American, Caribbean, American, Latino, Black Latinx, it's the new term they're using now. So it's more so getting them connected to their roots and their history. Not that we're promoting any chosen religion. We don't have a religion that we push in the organization.
Okay, so kind of spiritually connected with their roots. That's good, because I feel like it's in this season that we're doing right now, that we're in right now. And I don't really know how I feel about it completely. unfortunately, the murder and death of George Floyd really kind of sent shockwaves, not just through Minneapolis, not just through this country, but through the world. Like people were marching and protesting against injustices all around the world, I guess, on behalf of George Floyd and his memory and things of that nature. So a lot of times, as you like watch TV, you drive down the highway or you have conversations, everybody wants to have the conversation about, racism. And it's interesting to me because, as you know, I work in the medical field. And with that, we have different people from various walks of life and things of that nature. And sincerely, I do feel like, there are a few people that have approached me about this. And when they see George Floyd, they probably are reminded that they work with a guy, a black man. I don't want to say that size, but, they kind of assimilate. And I remember the other day, well, actually, more so after it happened, a lady said to me, she says, Darius, and she just had a look of distress on her face. And she said, Darius, what can we do? Like, what can I personally do? And I said, well, just don't be racist. And I think a part of that is, in order for us to expect people to respect us, we've got to respect ourselves. And we have to mentally and spiritually, like you said, with your kings, to go back and understand your history and your origin. And that's very important. And we look at Black Wall Street, and we look at the boycotts, Selma, Alabama, and different places like that. So I guess what I want to ask is, like, how intense is the focus on getting those young men to really go back and understand where they're coming from, so they can understand where they are and then where they're going?
Well, you know what? It is very intent, I'll say that, because what we realize is that a lot of times that when you understand who you are and where you come from, I think that what happens is that it may be a little easier for you to have a compass in life as to where you're going.
Right.
And I just believe that for a lot of our young men, and let me start by saying this: we do not discriminate. However, our organization, we have like a 1% non person of color. So in other
Okay.
words,
Right.
the group is basically composed of Black and Latino boys. That's who
Right.
come to be a
Right.
part of the program. And also, with that, they don't really have a clear understanding of their history, where they come from. They don't know the things that people of color have contributed to this society.
Right.
And so therefore, they're not understanding that our ancestors really had to pave the way and work hard for us to be who we are today. So it's almost like, if you don't understand your history, you really don't know how to operate in a lot of ways. And
Right.
one of the
Right.
things that that bothers me when I hear young people say, "Oh, that don't have anything to do with me," it has everything to do with you.
Right.
The systematic racism that you're dealing with, that's a part of history.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, so many times, and I'm just going to hit it hard, one of the things that really irks me about the young men of today is the N word. And it's everywhere. And I feel like a lot of times they will say that the power is out of the N word because of the pronunciation, therefore the spelling is different. But I have an issue with that word because, to me, it represents all racism. And I know that sometimes you have boys of color, men of color, who refer to each other as that. And I do believe they use it in an endearing fashion with no malice. But if a person that's not of color to use that word in their presence or to refer to them as that word, how would they feel about that? And not to put words in your mouth, but one of the things I like for you to speak on is, do you guys address issues such as that? Is that a thing for you, or what?
It's so funny that you would mention that because, I have been preaching abolish the N-word for probably, I know, since 2004,
And that's
since
what
I
I wanted you
started.
to speak on because
And
I
it's and
remember.
right, and it's funny because what validated it for me, I was connected to a group, one of my classmates, who started the campaign called Abolish the N-Word. And so she had a whole movement going. She and her husband on Abolish the N-Word. They had the cards, and kids were taking vows. But I think the reason why I have such a problem with it because young people don't know the history of it.
Right.
They don't know that word was used to degrade us. They don't understand the power of words.
So how do we get them to understand though? Because clearly it's not being taught in school.
Mhm.
You stay in the schools. So I would imagine that with your, mobile movement, that you guys kind of touch that.
Well, you know what? It's continued conversation.
Right.
It's continued conversation because the thing about it is so etched in their dialogue,
Mhm.
and then to
Right.
the point where people don't even bother addressing the harm of the word anymore because it's such a part of their dialogue. So
Hmm.
it's almost like for me coming to my presence, it's almost like here we go again with another lesson. So they
Right.
have a code switch.
Right.
And so, I always say to them, because they say, well, we took the power from the word. We're not saying we're saying
Yeah.
ah. I said, listen, black people don't talk like that anyway.
Right.
We put on everything.
Right. Right.
We don't say sooner, we say
Mhm.
sooner.
Yeah. Right.
So think about it. Think about it. And it becomes uncomfortable for some of them. I've had
Right.
some really deep conversations and it becomes uncomfortable for them. I'll show them documentaries. I'll show them I've taken them to the dictionary and showed them what the word really means.
Right. Right.
And so and the reason why they need to know that because the word that N word is not a black person. It's a
Right.
wild, untamed person. But
Mhm.
because they see us as wild and untamed, and sometimes we see ourselves as wild and untamed, we go along with the word.
Yeah, and I think it's to be honest with you, I think it's kind of hypocritical because and I came up in a generation, hip hop generation, where that word was and still is in hip hop. I'm a little older now, but I'll say back in my day, it sound like a real old man, but back in my day, you have various rappers that I looked up to musically that would always use that word. So I said it. I said it all the time. And I remember here in my high school, we had a race riot, and it was all started with that word. And it's so funny, and it dawned on me that how can I be upset when someone else says the word, and I want to fight, and I want to, defend my honor, defend my integrity, but it's okay when another person that looks like me says it. So what makes the word different? And I really cringe when I hear two guys talking in the presence of a person not of color, and they're using that word. And I can bet my bottom dollar that if that person not of color would have used that word in reference to them, they'd be very upset. And the word is despicable. And the issue that I have with us as well, and I'm sure you guys address this, is we've got to respect ourselves. I look at other cultures and they respect each other. Of course, there's infighting. I mean, people are people, they're going to have issues, but the respect has got to be there. And I would hope and I wish and I just pray that we can come together to respect each other because we have such a rich history despite how we've been done and treated in this country and treated around the world. And I would just hope that you continue to do the work where you can encourage these black and brown princes or kings that they don't need to refer to each other in any derogatory fashion and pass it off as "What's up, my brother?" or "What's up, my guy?" "What's up, my friend?" because they're not the same. So, I just wanted to ask you about that. Like, what initiatives are you doing to that? Like, and do you find it to be prevalent in the Hispanic community as well, based on your kings?
Well, you know what? Yeah, well, it's certainly prevalent in the Hispanic community because remember, a lot of times the Black and Hispanics or Latinx, as they're referring to each other now, they live next door to each other,
Right, right.
live with each other, so they're sharing the same, the same type of dialogue. But it's very interesting that, you know, Black children will use that word like it's nothing. They allow other people to use it like it's nothing.
Hmm.
But yet, if you're talking to some of the Latinx students and you ask them about their history, they don't know,
Mm.
but yet they're throwing that word around.
So do you think that the Latinos, because I don't know the answer to this question, but we will call that word as a derogatory in a derogatory fashion. So my question is that's in our history as Black people, African Americans. But what is their history with the word, to your knowledge?
I don't think they have a history with the word.
So they just use it because they're
They
neighbors.
just use it right. It's because of dialogue. Listen, I was walking down the street one day downtown Brooklyn, right? And
Mhm.
so I'll just say downtown Brooklyn, on a well-to-do side of downtown Brooklyn. And there were three Caucasian young ladies walking, looked like they could have been in high school. And one of them said, yeah, so this said that to me. And I was like, this got a lot of nerve.
Wow.
And so I like looked,
Couldn't believe it.
but then again, I could believe it because her generation uses the word and they throw it around. Probably she has friends of color who use the word. But I also think that it's easier for Blacks and non-Blacks to use the word if you don't know the history of the word.
Right. Right.
And that's the thing about it. Non-Blacks are totally detached from the word because
Mhm.
they didn't lose their ancestors, and the last word they heard was the N
Right.
word. I'll just say ninja,
Right.
ninja die,
Right.
ninja
Right.
I'm gonna kill you. You are
Right.
no good ninja. They didn't die with that, but our history says that that's what has happened.
Right. And it's interesting, because even like with this, with a lot of protests, you have a lot of people who are non-Black that are very much so in support of Black people and what's going on. I do feel that not every non-Black person is racist. So in other words, you can have white people that are not racist against Black or Asian, so on and so forth. But you have some non-Blacks who really don't understand, and they have what I like to call the luxury of removing themselves from those kind of conversations and removing themselves from those things. And not just removing themselves, a lot of times they will say, well, I don't see what the big fuss is. I don't see what the problem is. I mean, I don't see it. And it's interesting because with your organization, they need to understand how to deal with people like that who don't see it. Because first of all, I would rather sit down and talk to you. If I feel like you are receptive to the things that I have to say, I will be receptive to the things you have to say. But I'm not going to let you disrespect me, and I'm not going to disrespect you. But do not completely just wash away my feelings and what I'm going through. And so I realized that a lot of times people will say something like, well, why did they paint Black Lives Matter on whatever street? There was a thing at one point, a lot of cities around the nation, and you had some people going out there to paint over that. And I'm saying to myself, you're going to tell me that you're not racist. You went out of your way to buy your own paint, to come downtown, to paint over these words. And those people need to understand that just because it's not happening to them, it's not happening. It's not happening. You know what I'm saying? And the education part of it is so very important because again, to know where you're going, you have to know where you come from. And to me, I think we all need to be educated, but I think it's imperative that your movement and other movements like yours continue to educate the youth. That way, they can know how to stand against people. Because as long as we have people, we're going to have people who are racist, who are negative, who are hateful people. You're also going to have people who are loving, who are kind, who are sensitive, who are understanding, and who can actually be spoken to. So my question to you would be like, do you guys do things where you guys kind of go out and you outreach with people, or like you have a hookup with other groups and kind of get some dialogue started with those kinds of things?
So that's really a good question, and I'm glad that you said that because we have done work outside of the school, as I said before. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we've done, we've held forums. One of the big forums we did was called "Communities Under Attack." And
Mm-hmm.
so we were talking about the things that went on in the urban communities and how it impacts students' lives and the residents' lives and all those things. And we were coming up with solutions. So that was one that we did. We also did one called "Wait a Minute, We've Got Something to Say."
Mm-hmm.
So that was really powerful because we had about 14 young men speaking on different topics. Actually, it may have been about 20 of them. So they were speaking on different topics. We had a part one and a part two, and that was really powerful. And we also went to Teachers College to do workshops with prospective PhD candidates who wanted to work with uh, inner city young men, but didn't know how to. So they wanted to hear from them, what will it take? What are you looking for? How can we help you? We need you to help us help you. So, we've done quite a bit, but there's always ongoing conversation. Now that we have dealt with this pandemic, there will be different kinds of conversations going on now because you have students who will be going to school 100% remotely. You have students who will be going to school hybrid, and so we're going to see a difference in the way, or we may see a difference in the way they process the education, right? And not only that, we're going to also be dealing with students who are victims of, of the pandemic. They lost people. They still have people in their homes who are who are sick. They have people who are hanging on. So we got a whole new set of issues that we're going to have to deal with.
Right. And it's very interesting because, speaking of education, one of the things that has always swept the nation and continuing to sweep the nation is gentrification. And I had my good friend on, I believe it was the week before last, Daniel Burden, a realtor, who sold me my house. But we talked about gentrification down here in Charleston area, South Carolina. And, one of the things that allows us to be victims of gentrification is the lack of knowledge. And I was speaking to um, a friend of mine, an older guy, and he said, Darius, one of the biggest problems with gentrification with Black people is that we don't own anything. If you own something, they can't just come and take it from you. So one of the things I'm sure you guys kind of touch on, or whatever the case is as they move into adulthood and young men, that they understand the power of ownership. Understand that, if you rent, it's okay to rent, what I'm saying, but for a while. Not don't rent for your whole life, because you actually put yourself in a position of surrender, and you are actually kind of like at someone else's mercy, if you only rent and just rent, because you could be swept up in that whole thing. And it's interesting because you can have a neighborhood that has terrible sidewalks and streets and terrible lighting, very dark. Then gentrification comes in. It's night and day, literally. It's night and day. It's beautiful city lights. The streets have been paved almost with gold. And I think that it's very important that we get into the books and we understand and we learn. And that's kind of why I decided to do this, because I feel like there are a lot of things, number one, that I can learn, but there's some things that other people can learn as well. And that's why I have you on. I'm very happy to have you and other previous guests and future guests, because we need to understand what it takes for us to be a stronger people. But as far as gentrification goes, like in the New York area, how is it going up there? I mean, is it still as it always has been? Is it worse? Is it, better? Can you speak to that at all?
You know what? It's ongoing. I relocated back to New York about 22 years ago, and it had started then, and now it's like they have totally regentrified a lot of communities. But
Brooklyn. Let's talk about Brooklyn.
right, let's talk. Well, right. Let's talk about Brooklyn. Let's talk about Bed-Stuy that they've now
Change the
renamed
name.
Stuyvesant Heights, right?
Right. I heard that.
So, of course, when I grew up there all of my life, it was Bed-Stuy, do or die. We were proud to be from the Stuy Pride, the pride of Bed-Stuy.
Right.
We were proud to be from there. Yes, crackheads, um, other crime going on. But the thing about it, and I'm sure a lot of black communities, but it was a whole lot of love in the Stuy.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a lot of love
And
in
it
the
was a
Stuy.
community. People knew you.
Right, in the community. And, for us, we lived in that community. We went to church in that community. We had
Yeah,
relatives. You remember every
yeah, I
which
went to
direction.
school.
We
Yeah.
had an aunt, a grandmother, a
Mm-hmm.
cousin. Our
Mm-hmm.
pastor lived like 4 blocks away from us.
Right.
Our church was in the community. So
Right.
it was a part of Bed-Stuy. But once again, one part of that regentrification thing or gentrification thing is that it wasn't that black people didn't own, but black people got swept away with the whole crack era,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., our father.
Right.
You know,
True.
he wasn't a victim of it, but he wanted to get the family out of there and get
Yeah.
away from it.
Correct.
So I believe now looking back on it, that was all by design.
Yeah.
They want to wipe us out so that they can come in and take over. And now it's almost impossible for people of color to even purchase there. Now, I'm a product of Bed-Stuy, proud of it. I have no desire to go back there. Not because they have regentrified it, because even with the gentrification, whatever they've done, there's still some, in my opinion, some setbacks.
Mm-hmm. Such as.
Um, well, you have to go out of the community to get what you want.
Mm.
You still, I mean, there are no,
Grocery stores, that kind of
right,
stuff.
the grocery stores are still there, kind of like the same mentality in terms of ownership, in my opinion.
Right.
But, they refurbished a lot of abandoned buildings. There was an abandoned building right around the corner from us. I have a coworker that now lives in there. He says it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a neighbor. We had a neighbor that I spoke to about 2 years ago. He says, yeah, they're gentrifying, they're coming into the community, but the disadvantage, we still have to go out of the community to get the things that we want.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, my life is over there, but what they've done to it, they took it and they've made it their own, but yet in those communities, violent acts still they're still in progress,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I read a study a couple of years ago called the Whole Foods effect,
Hmm.
and basically the long and short of it is, if a Whole Foods comes to your neighborhood, it's going to be gentrified simply because Whole Foods literally drives the market up so high that people, first of all, other stores can't stay because it's going to jack up the rent in the shopping centers and on the street. Second of all, the people that live there cannot afford the goods that it provides. So a Whole Foods comes, then you have a Starbucks, and then after Starbucks comes, it's kind of like that whole domino effect situation. And it's interesting because and then you start to see the whole scenery change. And I understand you're talking about the crack era, and it's funny because, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's almost like, you were kind of implying that crack was brought there for this purpose. Is that what you're saying? To kind of push certain residents out of the area?
Listen, I believe that, and if it was not put there for that purpose, they saw an opportunity to make it work for them, right?
Mhm.
And let me say this to you: I believe that it was put there because they knew that they had a plan to move people out. Listen, where we lived in Bed-Stuy, you can get to downtown Brooklyn on a train in like 10, 12 minutes on an express train.
Mm-hmm.
You can get into Manhattan 30 minutes on an express train, you know. So after, to me, 9/11, it made it even more so. It got intensified because people wanted to get away from having to travel so far. You know, people were coming from New Jersey, coming from Connecticut, and
Mm-hmm.
people are still doing that. But to live in Brooklyn and these beautiful brownstones, I mean, these things are beautiful. You
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, it was by design because I remember back in around 85, 86, they were paving the avenues where we live. Like they were doing the streets all over. And someone said to me, I was a teenager then, they said, they're doing that because the white people are going to move back into this neighborhood. Never gave it a second thought until years later, all the gentrification, boom, there it is.
I remember I came up to New York for I think it was Thanksgiving one year, and you and I went down to the old neighborhood to pick up a package. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember seeing a single white person in our neighborhood when I lived there. So when I came back as an adult, came to visit you, we went to somewhere around where we used to live. Can't think of what street we were on, but went to pick up a package, and I literally saw a white kid, almost like blonde hair, blue eyes, riding a skateboard at night, like 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, "Is he lost?" You turned to, you said, "Darius, that's how it is over here now. It's different." And I said, "My goodness." And it was so interesting because, in the 80s and the 90s, you know, white people would never come over there. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
No, they wouldn't, and they turned their nose up at it,
Right.
especially when they
Right.
heard Bed-Stuy, you
That's hard.
know.
What?
Yeah, I remember talking to a relative of ours, and she was working in corporate America, and she said that one of her Caucasian coworkers said, "Oh, I got to go. It's getting dark because I ride the A train,
Mm-hmm.
and you know it has to go through Bed-Stuy, and I'm just afraid."
Right. Right.
But now they've moved there, and it's
Right.
almost like when they move in, it makes it all right to live there.
Yeah, it validates it.
You
Because
know,
it's seen as, I guess it's seen as safer. Although you said that there's still that type of crimes are
oh
still
yeah,
going
that's still yeah. Just the other day
on. Yeah.
in the community, and as you know, it involved the church we used to go to.
Yeah, I was
There,
talking to mommy about that today. I was actually going to bring it up to you.
right there was a violent act there. You know,
Hmm.
so you
Yeah.
know it's real.
Yeah. But just to get back to what we're talking about, about your organization, these are things that they need to realize and need to see. I think one of the things that I can appreciate with the generation under mine, so I will be a Gen X, so this will be millennials under me. They're very educated, I think, because of the internet. And I'm old enough to remember days with no internet. I remember when the internet came out, how slow it was, and everybody has a smartphone and they can literally do almost anything on their phone. And so information is readily available, very accessible. What I want to say was, I think that it's very important that the children or the youth of today realize they have a tool in their hand. They literally have a weapon, and if they wanted to know something, they can actually just pick it up and pull it up and look at it and read it. And it's important that they're not afraid. One of the things that hampers some of us sometimes is that we'll see something wrong and we're afraid to address it. And they need, I know you're doing this because that's your personality, but to confront things that they're not afraid to say, hey, I don't think that's right. And I think that we need to look into that and something needs to change. So I'm pretty sure that you're arming them with that type of, with that type of knowledge and that type of integrity and that type of, muscle to say, hey, it's not right and we need to do something about that. So do tell me this. Do you guys have any events planned? I know that, the pandemic is still kind of has us in like a weird limbo situation. Any events planned to kind of promote what you guys are doing? Or like you said, you had those other um events that you did in the past. We have something to say, that kind of stuff. Do you have anything coming up in the future?
Well, for this school year, we are looking at. We'll be doing a lot of this. We'll be doing some podcasts.
Mm,
We'll be doing, of course, some webinars, involving the young people. They will put them, they'll put them together on a variety of topics. We're going to do a strong focus on race relationships in America,
Mhm.
and also, getting people from generations to have a conversation about it, because, for a lot of these young people, they may not see it as a problem
Right. Right.
until they're pulled over, until they're thrown on the ground by police officers. And then
Right.
people who grew up, in the 60s and 70s, and be like, well, yeah, it's a problem. It's probably even worse now because people aren't aware of it. In the 60s and 70s, more so the 60s, we were well aware of what they were doing. So
Mhm.
about that, we're also doing some project around art and music, which should bring healing to people
Right.
based on the things that they've gone through. I mean, we're in a very provocative time. You're talking about the pandemic. You're talking about leadership and government that seems to not support remedying what's going on with race relations.
Right.
Uh, it's a lot. So we're going to be doing a lot of things that are pertinent to society this year.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because we're in election year right now, and I know your young guys are not able to vote just yet. But are you talking to them about this kind of stuff too, like how important it is to once they become of age to vote?
Certainly, certainly, and
Yeah.
not only vote on the in the presidential election. See, a lot of them focus on that, but also vote on
Locally.
local
Yeah.
elections.
Right. Right. Right.
Local elections, because you know you need to hold them accountable. You should not have a councilman in your community and you don't even know who he is.
Right.
You
Right.
can't go to him and ask him things. You can't contact his office. And you may not be able to get to the person, but somebody should be, you should know who the person is, where they are, and you
Mhm.
should be able to get a paper trail, or you
Right.
should be able to get a conversation or something going with them. And not just to complain, but also to support the betterment of your community. So for a lot of the students I work with, I ask them to get involved in voting processes in their school.
Right.
Who's running for Student Government Association? You
Gotta get
know,
some
are,
practice.
right? Are you eligible to run? You should
Hmm.
be a part of this conversation. You should be a part of this leadership,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it makes them unafraid. It makes them connected to what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's important, man. You being a father, not only are you a father to your own kids, but you're a father figure to them. And I would imagine that some of them may not have a father in their life or may not have a father figure. So it's very important that you are doing these things right now. And I have another friend who is here in the Charleston area that's looking to do kind of the same thing what you're doing, because you have a lot of black and brown kids who don't even know how to dress for an interview, who don't even know how to meet someone and shake their hand. This is before this came along. It's like, hello, my name is Darius, whatever it may be. Don't even know how to articulate themselves, because one of the things that the youth need to understand, and some adults too, that you're literally judged on your appearance. And so how you articulate, how you handle yourself, how you dress is very, very, very important. So it's important that they understand those things. So I'm glad you're doing this, man. As we wrap it up, I just want to thank you once again for coming on. This right here is going to be on YouTube and Facebook, that kind of thing. I want to promote your brand and what you're doing. So as we close out, give us some information as to how people can contact you, Eric.
So for one of the things you could do, or two things, you could check us out, our website out at umojaman.org. So it's UMOJA man.org. Like it is the first principle of Kwanzaa,
Right.
umojaman.org.
Okay. Right.
And so also you can also email me if you have any questions at ericfnolan@gmail.
Very, very good, Eric. Very glad that you were able to do this again today, man. I'm glad we got the sound and everything squared away, and everything just seems to be very, very nice, man. So I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors, not only with this endeavor and all that you're doing in the future. Once again, thanks for coming on. This is Darius Nolan. I'm a different echelon. Please follow this Facebook page Darius Nolan, and also YouTube page, I'm Indifferent as Shimon. Thank you guys so much. God bless you all. Eric, love you, man. I'll probably call you this weekend. And
Love you
have a
too,
great
bro.
day. All right, man. So we can laugh at some people. All right, man. Talk to you later, man. Have a good day.
You too. Thank
All right, bye-bye.